Someone lost their phone and a prepaid card, and the police say that they think that it was my son that found that card and that cell phone and used the card at a Walmart. They couldn't place him with the cell phone, but the judge gave him a year parole. He's just been here for 3 years. What happens now?
If it's a petty offense, you're safe. If it's something more than a petty offense, that's a deportable offense because you have a crime of moral turpitude within the first 5 years of your entry into America. So what is a petty offense? If the maximum sentence could not have been more than a year and you spent less than 6 months in jail. So I need to know a little more.
Onaya says, is there an expedited process to renewing a Jamaican passport? I have a family emergency and need to go home in 4 weeks, except my passport is expired.
Yeah, call the Jamaican consulate and tell them your emergency and show why you need to leave. They may not renew the passport, but they'll give you an emergency travel document. I've seen that happen.
Anita Martinez applied for her VAWA in November of 2017, and it's still pending. How much longer does she have?
It's taking 2 years.
Hey Brad, my question is, my husband petitioned and I last year, December, but my son is in Jamaica and he's a minor. I just filed my AOS last week. How long does it take for my son's I-130 to approve?
It should take 6 months, but it's taking closer to a year.
God Embassy Ministries says, could I get USCIS to resend my RFE? It was sent to the old address.
Yes, go online.
Randy Marshall says, if someone is yet to acquire a green card and has a child, and that child's mother chose to put the father on child support, will this impact the future of the father to the child in any negative way when dealing with his green card interviews or application process?
There's child support by the father, and who does it want to affect?
The father. To the
yeah,
child.
if the father doesn't pay the child support, it affects him. If the father pays the child support, it doesn't affect him.
We've got a question from Fox Racing who said, what visa classification does someone need to apply for if a person is seeking medical treatment in the U.S.? And does the person need to apply online or in person abroad?
You apply in person abroad. You would get a B2 visa, which is a visitor's visa. You would need to be able to establish that there's a doctor in America that can do your treatment, that you can afford to pay this doctor, and you can pay all the ancillary bills, such as hospital bills and anesthesia and medication and food. And you have to be able to also show that there's no doctor in your home country who can handle this medical procedure.
All right, Don DV says, hey Brad, I lived in NYC with my dad for 6 years. My parents divorced in 2012, and my mom and I went back to Japan. My dad became a citizen in 2013, and I want to come visit my dad. Can I apply for a green card again to come to America, or am I a U.S. citizen? I'm 17 years old. I had a green card when I lived in New York, but it's already expired.
What you should do is apply to the U.S. Embassy in Japan. This person's in Japan?
Yes.
Apply to the U.S. Embassy in Japan for what's called an SB1 visa. You're under 18, they'll allow you to come back and maintain your permanent residence, but you should do that immediately.
Okay,
and then when you come back, you're going to become an automatic citizen, provided you re-enter before 18.
Oh wow!
And then you get your
because
US
the
passport.
dad is a citizen now.
Correct.
So, wow.
I entered on a visa waiver program, and I married a U.S. citizen within 90 days and remained in the U.S. Would waiting 18 months before applying for green card eliminate misrepresentation and forgive overstaying my visa waiver program?
It would forgive overstaying, but it won't waive misrepresentation. You're still going to need a misrepresentation waiver.
Can an affidavit of support expire? Can given one affect your spouse?
An affidavit of support doesn't expire, but you may need to update the documentation in an affidavit of support.
If you got the 2-year green card and things aren't working out, what should you do?
Get a divorce, prove it's a real marriage, and file the I-751 on your own.
All right, Oscar says, how long is an AOS under 245I taking right now?
12 to 30 months.
We've got a question from Sammy on tweet who said, a friend of mine would like to know how long it takes to be called for an interview after receiving your work authorization through marriage to a U.S. citizen in New York City.
Adjustment applications take 12 to 30 months.
Hey Brad, how long does a waiver take to approve?
About a year now.
Cordella says, my uncle is asking for a friend. No, I'm sorry. Uncle Brad, I'm asking for a friend.
Got it.
After her permanent resident husband filed for her to get her I-130 approved, what's the next documents to file?
You got to wait for the contact by the National Visa Center once the priority date is reached. And then you got to do process to go home, or if the person's already home, then they just go home. But if you're going to process to go home and you're here out of status, then you need a provisional waiver. And by the way, I had seen that Cordella also asked what a SIJ is.
Yeah.
So let me answer that as well, since we're answering all of Cordella's questions.
Of course.
That's a special immigrant juvenile. That is a child who is here under the age of 18, who at least one of their parents abandoned, neglected, or injured them. And they are now in the legal custody of somebody other than at least one of their biological parents. They would be eligible for a SIJ, which is a green card, provided that the family court judge who gave the guardianship to the new adult guardian says that it's not in the child's best interest to be returned to the abusive or injurious parent or abandoning parent.
I got married on a J1 visa. My I-130 was approved. Now my lawyer's telling me I need to file for a waiver from my Jamaican embassy, and I don't know what to do.
Follow your lawyer's advice, file the waiver.
Can a daughter file for her mother?
Yes, as long as she's over 21, she's a U.S. citizen.
All right, Princess Tenko says, a friend of mine recently found out her husband was lying to her and playing her for a green card. Oh, hell no. They both did the interview at the embassy in Jamaica. If she doesn't file the I-601 waiver, will the case automatically be declined? She doesn't want to move forward with the filing anymore.
Yes, because the petitioner has to file the 601 waiver, so the person will never get a green card.
My friend and his wife filed their taxes to buy, but they did not use the address that they live. They used her sister's house address. Is that going to be a problem?
Yes, because you're not claiming you're living where you're claiming you're living.
Right.
You have an approved I-130, but your I-485 was denied. Can the fees be waived for the I-601A?
No.
We've got a question from Mel Byrne, who said, my sister's a U.S. citizen and filed an I-130 petition for my mom in Jamaica. However, the consulate information was left off the form. The priority date is in September. Is there any way she could add the consulate information before the I-130 is approved? And if so, how?
No, don't worry about it. If the address shows that she lives in Jamaica, they're going to just say Kingston.
Catherine says, how long is the expedited process for I-601A after the EP is approved?
12 months.
A friend of mine has a 1-year advance parole card. How many times do you recommend for her to travel within that 1 year?
As many times as you want, but keep the traveling to at least 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks maximum.
Hey, I got a question. So I got my green card in January, but there was a mistake with the year. My lawyer sent an email to USCIS with the pic of the green card, but I have not heard anything back as of yet. What should I do?
You have to file an I-90 form for a replacement green card to get the right one.
So not just send a pic.
Yeah, dumb lawyers that.
After filing a motion to reopen for the second time, one of the Miami immigration courts has granted my motion to reopen through an approved I-130 petition for my wife. But the Department of Homeland Security refused to join. What's the difference between these two entities, and what does it mean for my case?
If the judge reopens your case is reopened. It's easier for a judge to reopen the case if everybody agrees, which would be the Department of Homeland Security. But if the judge reopened your case, then wonderful, mazel tov.
I got my green card and my husband and I separated after 2 years. How do I proceed to get my 10-year?
Get a divorce and prove it's a real marriage and file the I-751 on your own.